Mock.
Yeah.
Ing.
Yeah.
Bird.
Yeah.
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 Mockingbird don't.
He don't
Have you heard? He's gonna buy
She's gonna
me
buy me
a mockingbird. And
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of From the Middle. I am Kory Hubble. Co-hosts tonight are going to be Dylan Hubble and Kendall Ayala. As you know, we are three middle-class guys living in the middle class of America. Starting off to bat this evening is Joey Votto, as you know, originally born in Toronto, Canada. He's had a pretty good season thus far, and he's got a family. His family's originally, as I said, from Ontario, where his mother was I believe his mother was a school bus driver. And strike hide inside. I don't know what just happened.
Baseball season. That's what happened.
Nomar Garcia Pyro steps up to bat. He's at.
Kory. This is the podcast, Kory.
Oh, this is the podcast.
Stop.
Currently getting
Stop.
You are Kory Hubble.
getting word from the booth that this is currently the podcast. And seem to be confused. I'm not sure what's happening over here, but we're gonna have a good night anyway. Ball low and outside.
I just imagine you at home watching baseball in front of your TV, with the TV muted but baseball on because you want to do your own commentary.
I was trying to say earlier, three middle-class guys from the middle of America with a point of view somewhere in the middle and the middle chapters of their lives. Ball high.
It's gonna be the longest hour.
I missed you guys.
If it's about baseball, it is.
Baseball, as you know, America's pastime.
Okay. All right. See you guys.
Welcome to Great American Ballpark, where we... I like that it just trails off into nothingness.
Yeah.
Middle-class guys... Hey, guys, what's up?
What's up?
I missed all your faces.
Fam.
Fam? Oh, please don't say fam. That's almost as bad as fur babies.
Is it?
Fur babies are fam too.
Hey, we missed you guys. It's good to be back. This is one of the episodes of our show. Which one is it? 13?
Yeah. Lucky.
Wow, lucky number 13.
Lucky number 13.
Friday. It's not Friday. 13th.
We're not going to skip the number 13? Have a mysterious missing episode 13?
Yeah, what's with that? Like how hotels don't have a 13th floor.
Yeah, no, it's not just superstition.
Don't people on 14 know which floor they're really on?
I'd imagine.
I think we're all. I'm not going to say people because I'm going to include myself. I think we're so dumb we don't realize it. I think we just go 14. All right.
Yeah, for most people, they probably just don't even think twice about it.
Yeah.
Probably don't even notice that there isn't a 13. They just know they need to go to 14, so they hit a button that says 1-4.
Nobody looks and sees a missing 13 and goes, "Hey, wait a minute."
There's like a 10-year-old that realizes it. Tells
Right.
his parents, and they're like, "I don't care."
Yeah, whatever. I'm just a little stitious.
This is you guys going. I haven't even had to think about watering plants. This is that for everybody else. They don't even think about it. It's just 14.
That's fun. Well, hey guys, we are glad that you are joining us for episode 14 of from the Middle. And before we get into sort of going around the horn and checking in with each other, we have some fun fact checks from episodes 11 and 12. So let me pull those up. Fact check from the middle. Fact check. As you know, this is the portion of the show where Kory fills everybody in on some fact checks based on previous episodes. Not always accurate when they say it live, so they make sure to circle back with us and give us what the real scoop is.
Brought to you by Bengay.
Brought to you by Summer's Eve. Funny I mentioned that. We're going to get to that. So a lot of people have been asking, what did you end up doing with your neighbor's lawn?
Yes.
Did you go back and correct your mistake? I've now realized that I did in fact make a mistake.
Good. That's the first step.
Yep. I shouldn't have even started. Knowing that I didn't have time to do the whole thing, I should have just not mowed any of his grass instead of some of his grass. Some people have actually messaged me and said, "Stay off my lawn," because they don't want me mowing a portion of their yard. So I followed up the next day after we recorded, and I said, "Hey,
I would love to pay you back for letting me borrow your riding mower, and I would like to mow your lawn. Can I do so? And he said, no, I was intentionally not mowing it because the lawn is stressed and it needed to be treated and watered. So I tried, and he said, it's all good, man. We'll just let it go.
So you made things. You made things.
I at least attempted to. I said, hey, I'd love to do that and pay you back. He
I'm
said,
disappointed I missed the anger and bargaining stage.
yeah. So I tried to make it right, and I've learned the error of my ways, and will no longer mow only a portion of anyone's lawn ever again. And I'm very sorry to all of those multiple people. Like, so our cousin Connor, shout out to Connor. He said, I listen to you guys while I mow. And that's definitely an all or nothing thing. You shouldn't have even have started. So sorry about that. So that's from episode 11. Were there any other fact checks from episode 11 that you can recall? I don't remember. I think we talked about how many people watched Stranger Things, but that a lot was the answer. Okay.
Yeah.
Fact checks from episode 12. So I used the word diatribe.
Okay.
To mean like a rabbit trail or an aside in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that at all. I'm really sorry again. I feel like I'm making so many mistakes lately. Diatribe doesn't...
We love you anyway, Kory.
Thanks, guys.
You do make a lot of mistakes.
I overthought it for a really long time. Diatribe, the actual definition, is a forceful and bitter verbal attack against someone or something. Has nothing to do with side tangents or long rabbit trails of conversation.
So a synonym for that might be rant. Am I understanding that? But no, because diatribe's kind of an attack.
It's a verbal attack against someone or something. So it's like it's forceful and bitter.
Like a pointed, angry rant.
I believe what's the word for something that everybody's using incorrectly? Like it's a common misnomer. I think diatribe is one of those. So
Can we talk about bougie? That's not being
Probably.
used right either.
So I'm gonna defend myself a little bit and say I think I've heard that used incorrectly the way I did before.
I think there's a lot of words like that.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
could probably come up with some right now that.
So we were talking about college football and the bevy of bowl games that there are, and I said how ridiculous the sponsors were getting, and I used Summer's Eve, which is a feminine product. So that is actually borrowed from a series of SNL sketches called ESPN Classic with Jason Sudeikis and Will Forte. This is funny. I did a little research on this. So they play characters Pete, Twinkle, and Greg Stink. And they're commentators in an ESPN Classic presentation of a women's sporting event from the 80s or 90s. While Sudeikis, Pete Twinkle, attempts to engage Forte's Greg Stink in actual discussion or analysis of the event, Greg is a cheerful moron incapable of even basic conversation. Here's an example. Pete. She just crushed a shot... Sorry, I'll start over. She just crushed a shot put with her bare hands. And Greg goes, I've got to correct you, Pete. She doesn't have bare hands. She has human hands. And people don't really say bare hands. They say paws. So the heart of these sketches is that infrequent asides where Pete promotes the feminine or sexual product sponsoring that day's event using rhyming jingles. It's hilarious. I highly encourage you to stop everything you're doing unless you're driving and go Google SNL ESPN Classics with Pete Twinkle and Greg Stink. They're hilarious.
I'm going to have to look that up.
The last thing we talked about was how they're sort of like we were talking about Disney princesses and movies and how they're sort of the marketing of some of these franchises is cyclical. And I was trying to, if you are in marketing or know anything about this, I would love for you to let us know. All I could find is a concept called nostalgia marketing, which is with millennials, for example, the resurgence of like making the SNES again,
right?
Video game console and things like that. I couldn't really find anything that talks specifically to marketing to the kids of a generation that had that toy or watched that movie. Mm-hmm. So I guess it would kind of...
I think that's still nostalgia.
Fall into nostalgia marketing, but
because
that is
still that's the parents trying to get their own kids into like that. That's I think that's all.
I think it rolls up into it. I would imagine though that with all the terms that we have for things, that there's one specific to that concept. But nostalgia marketing is very much a thing. So those were my fact checks.
Good work.
Yeah,
thank you.
You're welcome. Trying to
better the world. Try to better the world one fact
Okay.
check at a time. Sorry. Chris D'Elia has been doing the baseball announcer voice,
Okay,
which is
that explains
why
it.
I started.
That explains it.
I'm curious as people are listening to this episode, like how many other people listen to D'Elia versus some of the other popular podcasts like Joe Rogan. We've talked a lot about Pete and Sebastian. You're the only person that I know of that's talked about Chris D'Elia's podcast.
You just before we get into another long diatribe of why I love Chris D'Elia and his comedy and podcast, you listened to your first Joe Rogan.
I did.
Yeah.
What'd you think?
Yeah. No, I think it's great. Yeah, it's everything that you guys described. I don't want to rehash everything that you said, but I very much got the vibe right away that like he's a very good host. He's very good at asking pointed questions, but he's not trying to steer the discussion necessarily in a way that, you know, it's to something he believes or wants the person to say.
Right.
He's just genuinely trying to get along with them and ask good follow-up questions. And I appreciate, you know, the weight of some of the questions. You have sometimes in media and journalists will think you feel like they aren't quite asking some of the tougher questions. And I don't get the vibe that he has an issue with that at all.
Yeah.
He'll just pretty much ask whatever he wants to ask.
Yeah.
So
Up to and including, if you became president, would you let us know about aliens?
yeah, absolutely. Which that's pretty upfront, and he got Bernie to answer it.
That's a question a lot of people are afraid to ask.
Yeah, and he just went for it.
Yeah, just dove right in.
It's easy when Bernie's not actually the president.
Yeah.
Bernie can go, yeah, sure.
So for those of you that don't remember, in one of the early episodes, we talked about some of our influences and the rationale behind why three idiots like us would think we have anything interesting to say, or what motivated us to start this podcast. And Joe Rogan is one of them. And so we talked a lot about why Kendall and I like his podcast. Dylan just listened for the first time. So there's your context.
Yeah, I checked out a couple different episodes. One, because it was kind of the newer, he had Bernie Sanders on. And I'm not picking any political sides, but that's just a pretty high-profile person in the country at this point.
Yep.
And then I went back and started downloading some older episodes to listen kind of in my car ride.
Yeah.
And Jim Gaffigan was one of the older episodes that I went
Right.
back and downloaded, comedian Jim Gaffigan. So, and I downloaded a bunch of episodes from people from all kinds of backgrounds, just political, comedic, all different kind of stuff. So I'm excited. I'm excited to go back and listen and check out a bunch of episodes.
So here's what I would say. If you've never listened to the Joe Rogan Experience, I think he's on like 1600, episode 1600 or
It's up there. Yeah.
It's up there.
He does several a week.
Yeah. So here's what I would encourage you to do. Just find like your favorite guest, or just Google one of your favorite celebrities plus Joe Rogan, and chances are Joe's talked to them before, and just get a feel for it. It's good long form conversation. And like we've said multiple times, he's a great interviewer. So I've started listening to a few new ones myself. Tiger Belly, if you guys remember Bobby Lee from Mad TV, he's also a comedian. He's done a couple movies. Bobby Lee and his girlfriend Kalila, they have one called Tiger Belly. Anytime a comedian has a podcast, I want to check it out. Another one I started, which is kind of different for me, is the Unashamed podcast, which is done by some of the guys from Duck Dynasty. So huge show, handful of years ago. They just started one. So it's Alan, Jace, and then the patriarch of the family, Phil Robertson. And it's a good podcast. I just like that sort of hunting, fishing, talking about stuff. It's not politically correct. So if you're not okay with that, I wouldn't listen, but it's refreshing from time to time. And they just kind of talk. They do actually sometimes do a little bit of a Bible study, so that's kind of cool. You can follow along. So I just started that one. There's a few more that I just started listening to. We talked about Matt D'Elia, Chris's brother. He just started his own. It's called Matt D'Elia is Confused. The premise of the show is that he has people on that explains things going on in the world that he's confused about. And just like, what is going on? So have you heard about this QAnon thing?
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So like he had on a writer for the Washington Post who is an expert in all this QAnon conspiracy theory stuff. Basically, it's a guy that started posting on the website 8chan. I think some people are familiar with 4chan. It's 8chan, and this person is called Q, and they claim to be a retired or deep government military person who posts coded messages that Donald Trump is the savior of the world and is going to take down the deep state, which is like Hillary Clinton, and it's this series of coded messages saying that they're going to arrest like 100,000 people in the government and military who they believe to be like child trafficker. It's so weird and bizarre, but there's like an actual large group of people that believe this stuff to be true. The funniest part was, and Matt brings it up in the episode, almost everything that Q has posted has been proven wrong, or the date it never actually ends up happening. So
Right.
there's almost nothing to substantiate anything that they're
doesn't
saying,
matter.
but it doesn't matter at all. So imagine MAGA on drugs. It's way, way, way out there, far, super crazy, right wing, weird stuff. So he had this guy on. They had a great conversation about it. So, anyway, podcast. Are you listening to anything new, Kendall? Podcast?
No, nothing new. Kind of the same several. So, yeah, Joe Rogan and the rest of the intellectual dark web. So your Ben Shapiro's of the world and Joe Rogan's. And
Did you see when Ben had Joe on his show?
mm-hmm.
That was good.
Yeah.
It was a good discussion.
That actually happens that relatively frequently. Joe and Ben and Steven Crowder and
Yeah.
and others, like they're that group, they talk to each other quite a bit.
Yeah. So what's up with us, guys? We're 16 minutes in already. What's been going on?
Well, I heard the story, and I think everyone's okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tell the story. It was in Eastern California, in the desert. There were these two guys who were stranded and alone, and it had been a couple of days, and they hadn't had anything to eat, obviously. And off in the distance, one of the guys sees what appeared to be like a small tree in the middle of the desert, and they start walking toward it. When they get closer, it becomes apparent to him that this small tree, that the branches are draped with Canadian bacon, of all things. And so then, being hungry, like, he just starts running toward this tree. And when he gets about 50 feet away from this tree, just the tree just starts shooting bullets at him, just raining bullets his direction. And he got hit a couple times and goes down. And the other guy catches up to him and looks at the tree and says, "That's not a Canadian bacon tree. That's a hambush." And this has been your dad joke of the week.
This has been your dad joke of the week, brought to you by Stupid Stuff.
Wow. At first, I was like, "Oh man, this is our current events for the episode."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "I think this is a joke." And then I remembered you saying something about
Did you? Was a Canadian bacon tree? Is that the part is that about when you
it was the
realized-
bullets.
I'm
It was the
thinking like
bullets coming.
Mirage. Like this story's going to end with some kind of mirage that he's seeing because he's tired and dehydrated. And
Can we talk about dad jokes and puns for a second?
Yes,
Do you
of
guys
course.
do you
we
guys
got all the time.
do
in
you
the
guys
world.
like those?
Yes,
Sure.
of course.
Because I hate them.
No, you don't.
No, I really do.
You don't like the jokes themselves being dry, or you don't like the stereotype of the dad with the jokes?
I'm okay with the stereotype of dad jokes. I actually get angry when people post puns on social media. I get upset.
Wow.
Okay, can you give us an example?
No. Okay. Well, yes, because
you-
my dear friends.
Have you tried calming down?
No.
Okay.
My dear friends have a thread where they know that I don't like them, so they just perpetually post more and more of them. And every once in a while, I might go. But people play it fast and loose with the word hilarious
Oh, yeah.
on social media. Hilarious video. Oh my gosh, guys, hilarious.
The biggest offender of using stuff like titles like that is on YouTube, when I'm trying to actually find something funny.
Oh, yeah.
And everything's hilarious or.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's one. The Romans didn't find algebra very challenging because x was always 10. Angry.
That's right.
Instantly angry.
There's 11 kinds of people in this world. Those who understand Roman numerals and those who don't.
Yep. I'm looking for another one. Oh, somebody put blue painter's tape on a bunch of levels and wrote the word wrong on them on the blue painter's tape, and then said this is wrong on so many levels.
That is hilarious.
Guys, okay, so here's what happened. They kept posting more and more of these, and I'm not being funny. No, like I seriously went to Google and typed in the phrase, "Do people actually think puns are funny?"
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what'd you find?
Or are they pretending to think that puns are funny? Not pretending, that's the wrong. Why do people actually think puns are funny? Or are they being like contrarian?
They're as in they enjoy being contrarian. They think being contrarian is what's funny.
Yeah. So they're like, I'm gonna
I
put
can see
this.
that.
I'm gonna put this out
Hey,
there.
but you know what? Either way, they're enjoying it,
They think it's punny.
and either way, they think something's funny.
So here's what I discovered: multiple articles that said that puns are actually some of the most divisive forms of comedy because people either love them or hate them. It's really is like it's a separating kind of humor because it's common that people feel the way I feel.
Yeah.
I'm in the middle. If it's mostly love or hate, they're fine. I don't.
But you can't say like.
Maybe the right way to say it is they either think they're hilarious or they don't. I don't know. That still doesn't work because I don't feel that strongly that way either way about them.
I wouldn't put a blanket statement on all puns. Some of them I think are hilarious, and some of them I think were just poor jokes. For me, a good joke is all about timing. So like I had like a little joke that I had in my head that I was going to tell, and I told it. That's different, and that's fine. But I think puns are hilarious when they're off the cuff, when they're situational humor, that kind of thing. And so I feel like I enjoy a good joke more when somebody has it in their back pocket and waits for the opportunity versus forces the opportunity like I just did.
Yeah. Okay.
So
let's put it out to our friends. Do you like puns? Do you think puns are stupid? What are your thoughts? Hashtag thoughts from the middle. I think I don't like them because it just feels easy. It just feels like too easy. Like real. That's why people groan because they're like, oh, really? Because it's like that. That was the obvious. You know what it's like.
What is it like?
It's like the guy in the elevator who's like, "How's the elevator business? That has its ups and downs." Am I right? It's that guy in every conceivable situation.
Yeah, but sometimes that guy comes up with something that's gold.
That guy is never actually funny, though.
That guy is sometimes funny.
No, he
He's
isn't.
usually not, but he sometimes is.
I so wish that this had been discussed on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
That they would have had a good viewpoint on that.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, okay, so here's the one. As an artist, I would be doing caricatures.
Yeah.
In a public setting, like a prom or a fair or a festival. Okay.
Right.
There'd always be somebody. There'd always be a guy that would come behind me when I was drawing a young woman or a lady.
Yeah.
And go, "She doesn't have a mustache." Like, because she can't see what I'm drawing.
Right.
So he's trying to get her to think that I've given
yeah.
her a mustache in the caricature, right?
Yeah.
That guy showed up at every place.
Right. Yeah. But still, at some point in time, there was guy one. And that guy was creative and funny.
Okay, so everybody else,
Yeah.
not funny.
Yeah. It's like Green Day's awesome. Some 41. Yeah. They're just doing what Green Day did.
Do you guys know what I mean? Like the guy that makes the obvious
yeah.
joke in every...
Yeah. I think we all know that person.
Yeah. I'm often that person.
I'm just.
But I think you're funny.
We'll see.
I've watched. I'm.
There's a joke that I want to like. It takes 5 minutes to tell it, so I'm not going to. But it's in my opinion, the greatest joke of all time.
I say do
Someday
it. These
y'all
people
hear.
will listen to anything.
My wife has heard this joke.
If they're with
several
us
times.
this far,
I've told this joke like many
you
different
have
ways.
you have to now.
Okay,
Just tell
this is. I think like Norm Macdonald coined this as the greatest joke of all time.
Okay, strap in, folks.
So there's a moth, and there's this. He's flying around town, and he flies into his podiatrist's office, and he goes in and talks to the lady at the front desk and says, "Hey, can I see him?" And she says, "Well, yeah, sure, go right on in." So he goes into the office. Podiatrist shuts the door. Podiatrist says, "Oh, Mr. Whitaker, didn't expect to see you here tonight." He said, "Well, yeah, I mean, I just figured I'd come talk to you." And the podiatrist says, "Well, what's going on? How are you doing?" And the moth says, "Well, to tell you the truth, Doc, I'm not doing so well." He says, I've been working this job over at the brick making factory for the past 15 years of my life. And I just found out today that I'm getting laid off. And we're about to have our electricity shut off. And my youngest daughter, she's got this weird thing with her leg that we can't afford to get it fixed. And so we're just going to have to keep putting that one off. And then my older daughter, Petunia, she just wants nothing to do with me. And then at night I go and I lay down next to this shell of a woman that I thought I once knew, and now it's just blank stares every time I try to talk to her, and it seems like she doesn't know me. And to tell you the truth, Doc, there are times that I think about going out back to that bonfire and just ending it all. And the podiatrist looks at him seriously and says, This is serious business. That you should be talking to your therapist across the street. Why did you come in here?" And the moth says, "Because your light was on."
That was just over 2 minutes. I think it was worth it. There was enough payoff.
Not a pun.
Not a pun.
Funny.
Yeah, it's good.
Not a pun and funny. That was good.
That's dedicated to Amy.
When you started that, she rolled her eyes.
She is not listening right now. Guarantee you.
There's so much of this conversation that like I'm just like kind of subtly I'm bringing it up again. I'm viewing through the lens of all these comedians talking about what is humor and like why things are funny. And I really don't have any strong opinions on it, but I do think it's fascinating. The more people talk about breaking down types of humor and the different like niche types of humor that people are into and what's funny and what's not funny, it's really pretty fascinating. Like that whole show and this whole idea of like, I don't really think puns are that great. They're okay. But like there's whole forums and threads of people that just love it.
Yeah.
They
love
can't
it.
wait to get another good pun.
I love breaking things like that down, and I love, like I've talked about before, like I love the art and thinking that goes into a comedian's set, and like their choice of words and why they wait that long on that. Like they really do break it apart. Here's another pun. A father in Iraq gifted his daughter a new bag. The girl replied, "Thanks for the bag, Dad." Yeah, see? Stupid.
Yeah, that one was dumb.
Stupid. Jokes about German sausage are the worst.
That was kind of funny.
I like that one.
Delivery. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, one more D'Elia thing, and then I promise I won't talk about him anymore. So you guys remember from the movie Super Troopers, when they would pull people over, they would say, try to see how many times you can sneak the word meow into the conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Into the pulling the person over. So D'Elia had one that he tried with his friends. He said he did this for years. So anytime a server brings you food, it works better if it's a male server, just for the sake of the joke, or somebody gives you coffee, your barista gives you coffee. Instead of saying, "Thanks, man," you say, "X-Men." but you say it fast enough and with enough confidence that they hear because they're expecting to hear thanks, man.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you've said X-Men.
Yeah, yeah.
So Dalia said, I know I have a weird sense of humor, but I would just do this all the time. And I thought it was so funny. He said, so I started telling my friends about it. So they're like, okay, I'm going to try it.
Yeah,
I think they were at a diner the night that he told them this story. So he tells all of his buddies. And so his buddy's he's like, I'm going to do it. He's like, you're going to do it? He's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. So he brings him the check or whatever. And then he goes, X-Men. And the server goes, did you just say X-Men? In 2 years, Dalia never got anybody to pick up on it. And the first time this other guy tries it, the server goes, did you just say X-Men? So try this with your friends. Try saying, but even in that, and the reason I brought it up is because the subtlety with which you say things and the timing and the situation, like you have to know that well enough to put that perfectly in the right spot, or else it triggers and people pick up on it. And anyway.
Yeah.
So try that with your friends. Try X-Men with your friends. X-Men. X-Men.
Okay.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, you have to do it.
To
We'll report back next time.
Okay. To follow up on the comedy thing, here's something I was discussing today with some coworkers. Is kind of I'm gonna start by qualifying and saying I'm not super into like shock and awe type humor. Just like what's the worst news? Now let me make a joke about it.
Right.
But with that said,
News about German sausage?
sure.
The worst news?
Yes. That's what I'm talking about. But
What did you just do, Kory?
yeah, totally.
Sorry about that, fellows. That was accidentally.
Yeah. But here's the question: can a comedian pretty much make any joke that they want? Is that the one industry that kind of gets a pass for whatever they say? And here's the follow-up question, or kind of follow-up thought. If you know that a music performer is really, really good and they have a bad night live, they go do a show somewhere and they're not good, but generally speaking, you know that they're a good band or musician or whatever. Do you give that person sort of a pass for that night? Do you do the same for a comedian? Because they have to test material, right? They can't stand in front of the mirror and go, well, I think it's funny, so this works.
Right.
So they've got to test material, and sometimes that's going to be edgy. Is that the one industry that just absolutely gets a pass? Like, immune from all of this, like, phony outrage or PC culture, and I don't want to dive into those things, but I'm just saying, is that the one industry that you go, yeah, they're a comedian?
Are you talking about the sort of intentionally provocative comedians like the Anthony Jeselniks and the ones that are saying like horrific?
Yeah, are you talking about does it rub us the wrong way, or are you talking about do we find it funny?
No, well, I guess what I'm saying, I'm not talking, to answer the first question, I'm not talking exclusively about the Daniel Tosh and the Anthony Jeselnik, not exclusively those type of comedians. What I'm saying is, if an even average comedian makes a sort of edgy joke, are they the one, is that the one industry that you can sort of give everyone a pass in that industry for trying it? Because the nature of comedy is kind of pushing the bounds to see what's funny. And so is that the one industry where even if somebody makes a horrible joke about some current event, is that the one thing where you can just go, all right, but they're a comedian. It's, what are we going to do?
Go ahead, Kendall. I'll get your thoughts first.
Well, I mean, my general opinion, and this is where like I don't think that it's possible to have this conversation without getting too political, because my general thought there is that the only reason why it's a problem in the first place is because of politics.
Maybe. I think even somebody's own sensibility, they could be offended by a joke.
Right.
In one of the more recent episodes of Comedians in Cars, they basically say, why is it that it's Ricky Gervais is talking about, why is it that jokes are okay until you offend somebody's sensibility and then they don't like them anymore?
Right.
I don't think that's inherently political. I think but is that the one industry where as a whole, as a society, we could go, give them a pass. They're a comedian. That's their job.
I would say I think so. For me, for me, I've never heard a comedian say something kind of I've never heard a comedian say something that was an anomaly from everything else that they've put out there to represent themselves and sort of disowned them for the anomaly.
But
I've
that's
just not
assuming that
done
people have followed them enough to know that. So if you came in cold and didn't realize this person was an edgy comic, you'd be highly offended in a highly offended world right now.
Yeah, I mean, if I were offended, then
Right.
and it was the first time I'd ever heard them. That was the only joke I heard them say. I still don't think I'd write them off.
Yeah. So this gets talked about a lot actually because our world is highly sensitive right now. People, there seems to be a new hobby of getting offended, finding ways to get offended.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a very hot topic with comedians. In fact, a lot of them have stopped going to college campuses because when it seems like that would be the most open-minded, college campuses and the faculty won't even bring them on if they're saying things that they disagree with.
Or they'll interrupt and stop a show.
They'll stop a show and say, "This is not what we thought you were. It's time for you to leave."
Right.
It's happened. It's happening recently.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, they would say, I don't know if it's the only one, but it for sure should be one of the ones where we get a pass because to find out what's funny, we have to push boundaries.
Right.
Because what's funny to nothing is going to be funny to everybody. Every joke offends somebody,
Right.
or else it's not a joke.
Right.
So their argument and their defense would be, and I'm not saying whether or not I agree, we have to keep pushing the bound. This has to be one of the places where we push free speech because that is the litmus test that is helping us figure out what is okay and what is not okay. And sometimes, yes, it's going to flop and it's not going to work.
Right.
And we're going to get booed off stage and somebody's going to say that we made a racist joke on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or whatever. But they would say, yes, it should be. And they quote, I mean, they would say we wouldn't be here if it weren't for people like Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and some of those first comedians that went from the vaudeville stupid sort of, hey, whatever, to like
Baseball announcers.
hey, a baseball announcer, Lenny Bruce here. We're gonna, but they were some of the first guys to like sort of start pushing that into uncomfortable, cringy areas to make you think.
Yeah, and it's not that there never were boundaries before to be pushed, right? So even George Carlin, like the boundary that he was pushing was words you can't say on TV, and then some political stuff that he would talk about.
Yep,
right.
And that was ticking off plenty of people. It's just today I feel like there's just so much more that people are being offended by. So it's not just I can't believe you just said that word, but it's more along the lines of this is what it possibly could have been construed to be.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it might have offended not necessarily me, but it could have offended someone else, and so now I'm offended.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of like virtue signaling and like
It gets into that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the difference is I'm not in some industry, I'm not a normal guy where I said something offensive, realized it, and then tried to pass it off like I was just trying to be funny.
Right.
I'm talking about people that are actually on a stage doing stand-up comedy or have a comedy-themed podcast and are being criticized for things that they say. I fall into the camp where I just think, yeah, that's probably the industry you get a pass in. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's different. Like, if you go back 30 years before the internet and your friend took you to a show and you didn't know who the comic was because they're a local up-and-coming whatever, and you walk out of the show because you didn't know what you were walking into, that's different than the age of the internet where you can literally, somebody's like, hey, do you want tickets to the show? And in 2 minutes, you can find YouTube clips, watch them, and respond and say, yeah, they seem funny, I'll go.
Right.
Like, I don't understand. I genuinely don't understand the amount of outrage. It feels like the one industry that you just kind of go, yeah, but they're a comic. So it's just kind of expected. People just don't want the thing that they care most about made fun of, but then don't watch stand-up comedy,
Right.
don't go to shows, knowing that almost nothing is off.
Yeah, I watch comedians who make fun of like moral pillars of my life or ways that I choose to live. They're blatantly making fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, okay, it's like the grocery store mentality. I don't take everything. That's not for me. Okay, fine. It's still a funny person. And I still like hearing what they have to say about anything in life and culture and what's going on. Just because they happen to poke my thing in the ribs, I'm like, that's okay. Like,
That's the thing. Like, because I think, like, I mean, boycotting because someone said something that offended you and that kind of thing. That just, I generally speaking, I don't like boycotts. I don't think they particularly work. I mean, if you feel the need to boycott, Field and Stream because they're not selling the right guns anymore, then fine, go ahead. If you feel the need to boycott Chick-fil-A because of whatever, fine, go ahead. It doesn't bother me. I just think that you're wasting your time, generally speaking. But that said, like, I've heard it said, and this is where, and maybe we'll cut this, but just a quick point, that with the boycotting in mind, people sometimes ask themselves the question of, should I listen to a comedian who had said something that I find morally reprehensible? Should I tolerate this thing and that? And when I look at it from my vantage point, I look at some of the newer within the last decade people who are asking themselves that question and then turning around to boycotts, and thinking to myself, the conservatives of the world, every time they watch a movie, are making the decision to look past it.
Yeah.
Every time they watch a TV show, are making that decision that they're not going to boycott the thing that is making fun of what they're about.
Should I watch Star Wars because J.J. Abrams said this thing about Georgia or stood for this thing? And,
Yeah.
you guys heard about that
yeah.
months ago, right? So, interesting. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just something that I find, the more that you think about everything happening in the world without getting, political, it's just that's the industry that I just look at and go, this just feels like the exception. For just don't go, and I still believe that, part of the boycotting thing, you could do boycotting / vote with your wallet. I do believe that that's a thing. You just don't have to go buy. I don't believe in advertising what I'm boycotting. That's just, but if there's something I'm like, yeah, I'm just not going to buy their thing anymore. That to me is just because I don't like it. It didn't work well.
Right, yeah.
I don't care for I don't have to advertise it. But
exactly. And even advertising, I don't have a problem with people advertising it even. It's just, don't expect that don't assume that I'm not on your side because I'm not partaking in your boycott.
Yeah. I think that's valid.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And I to me, it's the same. Like, if you don't like the Anthony Jeselniks and the Daniel Tosh and the formerly Louis C.K. after all his stuff, if you don't like that type of humor that's edgier, just don't watch their shows and stand up and go pay to see their shows. But we live in a world where, like, it's hard to be offended by a comic when there's clips of them on YouTube you can watch before you go see them.
Sure.
Like, yeah, they might, at the live show, they're going to be a little raunchier. They might use some more language or whatever. But generally, you should kind of know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And it's just since you were talking already about, like, we're talking about types of humor and things like
sure.
that. It just,
No, it's a great question.
yeah, we were talking about that today. And I thought that might.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, guys? Should comedians be able to say pretty much whatever they want? Or should they abide by some filter and sensitivity? Or is that the thing making things funny? We'd love to get your thoughts.
Share your puns.
Don't share your puns.
As many puns as you
Don't
can.
Kory
don't share your
loves
puns. Don't share your puns.
Find Kory on social media, tag him in every last one.
I will boycott.
your
I will
puns.
boycott you, and I will advertise my boycott of you.
Actually, don't do that because he won't run social media anymore.
That's a good point.
You don't want stuck with the second team offense. So.
We tried it once and it didn't work out.
Yeah, Instagram is something else. That's for sure.
While I was, for those of you that want the context, so while I was gone on vacation, and we'll get to that in a second, these guys had to run social media, and they were like, "How do we do this? What are hashtags? How does this work? They won't let me post." It was like,
Yeah.
you were having some.
I imagine because we have a group text that we have going on for all of our business dealings.
That sounds,
if you will.
That sounds shady.
Anyway, so Kory is away, and I imagine that he just like a couple days later is reading this conversation between Dylan and I, trying to figure out Instagram and just laughing at himself.
I'm just instantly jumped to the Jerry Seinfeld look, like as he's trying to read these texts, going, Gosh, these guys. I'm really not infatuated with Seinfeld. I just happen to be consuming some of that media recently. So it's
No,
working.
you guys remember how I said this was going to be an exercise in my overthinking and just letting stuff be what it'll be?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
So with Instagram, I tried to have this thing going. And if you follow, I tried to do the orange album art of the number of the episode and then a photo and then the album art and then a photo and then the album art and then the photo. And when you do it in that pattern, it creates a checkerboard effect on Instagram because you've gone album art, photo, right?
Right.
You guys ruined that right away. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I actually didn't give the Jerry Seinfeld look because I was like, it is what it is. It's a representative of us in that moment, and I'm doing really good. I'm doing a really good job of just letting it go. And the fact that you didn't alphabetize the hashtags doesn't bother me at all. doesn't bother me at all. I could have gone back and edited it and all the
even occur to me.
all the punctuation.
Why would you?
Man, this is
alphabetize-
watering the bushes all over
Is
again.
alphabetizing hashtags a thing? Like, do people do that?
No, that's his thing.
Kory does that.
Here, I thought I was being good because I was putting them in the order of how they appear on the episode.
Oh, there you
So,
go.
like,
okay.
So like, as I'm watching, I'm jotting some notes down, and then I
See?
go in and hashtag them and tag them in order.
There you go.
See, I'm actually okay with that because as long as there's a rationale behind it, I'm okay with it.
Oh, in that case, I was totally random.
Then it bothers me.
No, but if you were listening to the episode looking at the hashtags, you would
That makes sense.
generally
I'm cool.
see the hashtag and the tag in order. Like, why
See?
didn't he tag all the people?
See, in that case, I love
separate
it.
from all the hashtags.
Yeah.
Because literally for me, it was an ease thing. As I listened through, I would just jot down a quick word
I love it.
or a phrase and think, oh, I'll go back in and hashtag that. So
No, it's good. As
Yeah.
long as there's a rationale, I'm good with it.
yeah, there's very little, but there's something. And I'm not tech illiterate. I was once on Instagram, but I'm so far removed. I didn't realize, and I apparently never used more than 30 hashtags at a time. That's a thing that everyone on Instagram
Yeah, you
knows
can only
about.
That was the problem we ran into. Yeah.
Yeah, it was posting like blank.
It's just the picture. Nothing
Yeah.
comes up in the body of your thing.
Also, if you are following on Twitter, you should. But if you are already, I started using our Twitter account, and we're going to try to put like, a dash Dylan at the end of a tweet or comment. So you'll kind of know who's talking from our profiles if it's like on Twitter or something. I put some really dumb stuff out into the interwebs on Twitter that you can check out on our page if you want.
That's good for me because now when things bother me about what you post, you put the dash Dylan, and I'm like, it's all good.
Everyone knows who the idiot was that
It's all
wrote this
good.
post.
It's all good.
Yeah.
We were going to talk about, so Kendall, you just had a trip, and we were going to talk about some current events. School's starting in a bit for our kiddos, and we're ramping towards like the local fairs and the county fairs and stuff. So tell us about, you got some new ink on your arm, and
Yeah.
tell us about your trip.
So I mean, it wasn't. So this is how my wife and I get away for vacation sometimes. Really simple. So my wife was at a conference in Anaheim.
Shout out to Amy, by the way. I saw she got an article published. You shared the other day?
So I mean, Amy, she's a PhD. She's the most brilliant person I know.
Aw.
And I'm not just saying that. Like, and there's this whole side of this job that like she's a chemist, and she's in clinical chemistry, directing at a hospital for the lab. But then there's this whole other side of her career where she writes and publishes and things. And that's sort of like part of the job. Like there's hospitals want you to do that kind of thing, and there's
Right.
some incentive to doing that. And so she's been published before in other things, but then recently she had been working on last year, like literally writing a chapter for a textbook. Like, do you know anybody who's written a textbook?
No.
And what's funny about that, and people are rightfully impressed because like I don't post very often.
Right.
That impressed me when it came in the mail, and
Heck
I
yeah.
open it up and I see her name.
Heck yeah.
And just in this textbook of stuff that I don't understand, and I couldn't even tell you exactly what it is she does at work. It's over my head.
I read the title and I
entirely.
was like, whoa.
Yeah,
Sounds
but-
smart. I draw pictures.
Yeah. So, but I don't know if it's a thing where it's like if they like send you a copy of the book or whatever.
Yeah.
So we have a copy of the book. And so I shared it, and I was impressed. So and that's it. That's actually not her first time writing in a textbook either.
Wow.
Just the most recent. There's at least one other that I'm aware of that she's done, but yeah, no. So that was recent, but I don't know. At least in my world, that's one of the bigger things that she has done recently. Is that now there could be like multiple lives saved at work that I just don't know about.
Right.
But,
Sorry, I didn't mean to get you off of your
No, you're
vacation. I
good.
just wanted to shout out to Amy for her.
Yeah, no.
her-
So there
her
was
chapter getting
a
published.
chemistry
That's awesome.
nerd convention over in Anaheim that she was a part of, and so what we do for those conventions sometimes is we use those for vacation, because then we just have to pay for my flight and sort of my half of the vacation.
Yeah.
For a lot of that, and then when the convention is over, then obviously we're on the hook for her
Sure.
too. But it's a good way to kind of do that, and so our kids are young enough that so far we've just found childcare for them, and then went and did that. This time around, we couldn't get the childcare for any more than a few days, and the way it was going to work out was like we were going to fly out and get there like late in the evening, and then we would have like one night stay and then a full day there in Anaheim, another night stay, and then I would have to leave
Okay.
in the morning. And I was like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
do that.
It's a lot of travel for.
So instead, what we did was we were super local and dropped the kids off in Cincinnati. We found
Just to roam the streets, or
just to roam the streets in Cincinnati. We just dropped them off, yelled out the window, said, "Take care of them."
anyone
we'll pick
listening
'em up.
outside of the state, that's where we drop kids.
Yes,
Just
yeah.
leave
You
'em.
just yell out, "I'll pick them up here
Yeah.
in 3 days."
There's actually an exit. You can see there's sign.
roaming packs, hordes of children, just
And-
through the streets and alleys of
Yes.
Cincinnati.
and one bird.
And one bird. But man, I've got maybe the next episode I'll talk about something about the bird. But so then we found a really cool old historic hotel. And we like those kinds of hotels,
Like boutique hotels.
like a boutique hotel
Yeah.
in a small town.
Yeah.
Small town.
cool.
For those of us, many of our listeners are going to be familiar with Sunbury, Galena. Sunbury is probably about 3 times the size of
Really?
of Wilmington, Ohio, which
Yeah,
is where
yeah.
we went.
Yeah.
And so we stayed at this really old, supposedly haunted. I don't believe in such a thing, but like I look up haunted hotels because there's some overlap there of things that I actually look for in a really cool old hotel.
Right.
Um,
Namely.
mainly like, built around turn of the century and
Right.
on
On top of an Indian burial ground.
on top of an Indian burial ground. is what I
Native
look for.
American. Sorry.
I like doors that close themselves.
That's funny. Not a pun. Funny.
Not a pun. No, but it just, they're just cool. They're usually decorated differently because they're just like, they just have old furniture stuffed in
Yeah.
the rooms and that kind of thing. So we stayed there for a night, had a really good breakfast. They have a farmer's market at the hotel parking lot on Saturday mornings, which we didn't know about. The chef comes in on Saturday morning and shops the farmer's market and then creates a menu. And for hotel guests, it's free. And so that was awesome.
Yeah.
And Amy and I, we like to try to walk into a tattoo place when we have time away with each other, and this was no exception. So we each got
new ink?
got a tattoo.
Do you want to tell us about it?
It's so we got an olive branch on my forearm. I don't want to talk too much about it. Romans 11. Look up Romans 11. That'll tell you
There you go.
why I, as a Gentile, wanted to get an olive branch
Love it.
tattoo.
I like that you guys do that. That's a fun little ritual.
Yeah, she got on her back. She got a tattoo of like the ball and stick model
Yeah.
of serotonin on her back, with a caption that says, "If you can't make your own, store bought is fine." So that was fun little chemistry and
That's fun.
and mental illness joke.
There you go. And the hotel sounds really cool. I tried.
See, I laugh at it. I thought it was actually funny.
Yes.
So that's my story. That was our That was
Sounds like
that
a
was
fun
our
little trip.
Our little vacation.
Good.
Any
kinda
good
thing.
food while you were there?
Not really to speak of. We went to just a random Mexican place that was local. That was okay.
Yeah.
Nothing
better than traveling to get okay Mexican.
Right. Yeah. That was the breakfast was the breakfast even was what I had was good, but I was a little bit. I got a hash. It was a
Corned beef hash?
no, it wasn't corned beef. Shoot, a beef short rib hash.
Okay.
And I was really excited about it. And it was made with like the stuff that the chef had bought that morning, and it was like, man, I was digging to try to find any meat in there.
Really?
And I was disappointed. What I had of it was fantastic, though.
Yeah.
But
right.
anyway,
How about you, bro? Anything interesting in your world these days? We were talking about here in Ohio, the county fairs are starting. And what was your comment before we started recording?
We always like to kind of catch up. My wife and I they went to the fair. They, Bree and my daughter, they went, family, they went. I was working. A lot of people are going to the fair, county fair, state fairs, whatever. I don't even need it. I don't
is it
want.
worth sweating for?
I don't want to say it in a way that's offensive. I'm asking this genuinely. Is there a greater spectacle that is mankind than the goings-on at a fair?
At a county fair.
County or state, I don't think it matters. It's just real special. I'll just...
Was it was it a county fair or state fair? Because I feel like
I didn't go to either. It's that time of year, and I'm thinking about it, and I listen to sports radio, and they're talking about go to the fair for all the things that you go to the fair for. And it just makes me think, I'm not sure.
I love the face. I love the face you're making.
I'm not sure that there's a more unique thing you can experience
You're trying to be so nice.
than all the unique diversity that shows up to a fair.
Are you saying it's good people watching?
Yeah,
you go.
And
that's a great way to say it.
it's good people watching.
It was the people of Walmart before that even existed. It's the good and let's be frank, good and bad, right? So there's going to be some really interesting, cool, unique-looking people and some others.
God bless.
It's so good.
You've had some bad fair experiences, haven't you?
Yeah, I haven't. I've enjoyed them.
Oh, well.
Yeah, they're fine.
That used to be the highlight of our summer. Like the Allen County Fair right before school started.
Wait, is that a small town Ohio County Fair? Is that what you're
Actually,
basing this
I
all
don't.
off
This
of?
is probably local lore. They always said it was one of the nicer fairs around the state. I don't know if that's true as far as other than that.
You'd probably be hard pressed to find a fair board that wouldn't say that and push that about
Well,
their
sure.
own fair.
That's what I'm saying. It's local lore, right?
Yeah.
But like physically, the Allen County Fair is well kept. Is that true? The grounds of the fair.
Yeah.
It's well paved, wide streets. Everything's nice. I mean, generally
yeah.
nice. Like it's some places might have a lot of broken up sidewalks, and that's not what's happening. That's all I was thinking about. Is just it's a unique experience at the fair. That's for sure. Do you have any favorite fair foods if you are going to go?
For sure the funnel cake.
Funnel cake, elephant ear types.
Not elephant ear funnel cake.
That's interesting because they're both dough with sugar.
Maybe it's the texture.
Yeah,
There's a texture difference between the two.
And I like the interesting, I got to try emu burger or ostrich burgers
Okay.
and bison burgers. So I like to try some of the rarer, things that you don't stumble upon in your average
yeah. There's
grocery store.
lots of deep fried stuff. I hear.
I've never done that's sort of a shtick, like the deep fried butter and deep fried Snickers and
Deep fried butter.
deep
deep
fried
fried butter,
Buckeyes.
deep fried Buckeyes.
That's a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
But that's just what's happening around the state, and so I'm sure lots of states. So I'm sure lots of people can relate to.
I will say that I enjoy the Ohio State Fair.
Yeah, I'm sure it's lovely.
I enjoy it, and I don't think of it as what you just described.
Come on.
I think of some county fairs that I've been to, the way that you just described.
Yeah.
But I don't think of the Ohio State Fair as the way you just described.
Okay. I haven't been in a while, so I could be out of touch. It's very likely. I'm happy to own that it's me, and I'm the weird one.
Hey, and we've had some very positive experiences at the fair, and we have a lot of family that they participate in fair livestock shows and do really well, and so we're all about the fairs. We're just saying that it also happens to be some very good people watching for some of
Or
the...
maybe at the very least, maybe this was your point, that some of the people that you don't see in other places are also at the fair.
Yeah, that could be
And
it.
so you've got perfectly good, normal, fun entertainment and families and
Yep.
things, and then you have people that you don't see very often.
Yeah, does that make me sound better? Yeah, let's go with that.
I think that makes it sound a little better. It makes me feel better about myself for liking going.
I think
You're talking to a guy who used to I was a part of the Ohio State Fair band, and so I lived at the fair.
I don't think that it's too much of a stretch for anyone to understand that if you're trying to make a comedic point, you're gonna play it up a little bit for fun.
Right, yeah.
So I was playing it up a little bit.
He was playing a comedic point, and so does he get a pass?
Does he get a pass?
I absolutely get a pass.
Are you offended? Let Dylan know.
Please don't.
Good thing he's not on Instagram personally.
Oh man.
Vote with your wallet on our free podcast.
What, Kendall, when you would go to the fair, what was like your, I want to make sure I do or see or get to eat this?
I don't know. I do like walking around the animal barns.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a draw for me.
Yeah.
To go to even though I never participated in the fair as a kid growing up. I didn't live out in the middle of nowhere with animals or anything like that. But I still think that's fascinating. I have friends who did. So that's always fun. The food is always fun for me.
Yeah. Right.
Fried cheese is my favorite thing to get at a fair. But then I always like to get an ear of corn. There's this one place at the Ohio State Fair that does whole barbecue chickens that are absolutely amazing.
Yep.
So that's not really big into the rides, but to tell you the truth, I guess it's just kind of walking around and looking at some of the other spectacles, like the giant cow made out of butter.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not big into the rides because I'm too big for the rides. That's why I have to say that. So, by the way, my answer is corn dog. I like corn dogs.
That clipped a little bit when you did that.
Good.
I'm not going to be able to filter
Good.
that out.
Yeah.
It's going to sound like that's what it's going to sound like.
Step right up and get your corn dogs.
I have to ingratiate myself into the crowd that I just alienated.
Oh, there you go, using big words again.
Ingratiate.
Yeah. Have you ever used the word ajar, to describe something?
Yes.
Not like a space Jar. Like
You went
a
from
jar.
highbrow to a very normal word. Have you guys ever used
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
I'm just trying to settle a bet. It's fine.
Oh.
Like you're saying, have you ever said, "Hey man, your door's ajar"?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's have I ever used the word?
Do you use it? Have you ever used it? And if you do, is it fairly regularly for the word?
Okay, I see your point, I think. My go-to to describe the door to our studio right now is that it's open, not ajar.
Yeah. I think of a jar being like a small degree. It's open to a small degree.
Oh,
The jar.
No, I've never
the
thought
door
of
is
that.
ajar, like being slightly open.
I would-
Otherwise, I would just say open.
I've never thought of the word of jar describing an amount of openness.
I could have literally made that up.
And even if it does, I would still probably just say a little open.
Okay.
Brian Regan has
That's
a great bit that's perfect. I have to mention it because you set it up perfectly. Where he says, "Have you ever had a friend use a word that when they use that word, you consider dropping them as a friend?" And he said that one of them was cinema. "My wife and I like to attend the cinema. Would you like to attend the cinema with us?" And then the other one was, he said he had company over, and the guests said, "Can you please pass the catsup?"
Oh man.
And he said to his kids looked at him with this look like, "What did they just say?" And he looked at him as if to say, "Don't worry, you'll never have to see them again." He said that word's dangling by a thread. Catsup? Who says that?
So you don't have to fact check later. Dictionary.com says neither entirely open nor entirely shut, partly open.
So is that a glass half empty or half full kind of thing?
So what? So how open does something need to be before it's open?
I don't know.
I would never say a jar in human conversation.
All right.
I'd say it's open. You're a little bit open.
Okay.
That sounds like a jar. Sounds like using the word ajar on a regular basis sounds like something Jeremy Kester would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. I thought you were gonna say like Frasier.
No,
He's got his dictionary in his back pocket.
I mean I've only seen the guy one time, but I can right now. I'm hearing him say the word ajar in my head over and
Yeah,
over.
like
again.
Aziz Ansari.
No, it wasn't, but now it is, and I love it.
Oh no! The door's ajar. It's ajar.
Oh, that's funny.
All right. Cool. That was it. That was my question about a jar and the fair.
I have a question before we wrap. So next year it's going to be 2020,
Yep.
Right.
Or 2020,
what did I say?
2020, but that's okay.
2020.
The point remains: are people going to start saying 20s, 30s? So are people going to be like, "Hey, man, get with the times. It's the 20s."
Yes.
I think they'll say that, and I think you will also hear the 2020s.
Because they don't say it now because nobody says teens, right? Nobody
Right.
says it's the teens, man. Get with the program.
Right.
But do you think next year, starting next year, people are going to be like,
Yeah, I'm not sure that we'll hear it a lot next year or for the next decade.
okay, follow-on question.
I think our grandkids will say it.
We'll say it because
Yeah.
they don't have the context of,
They will refer to it as the 20s, and then
which makes me think, are there going to be people who, instead of the roaring 20s, if things are a little slow for a while, be like, more like the boring 20s, am I right? To like throw back, like, will people who lived like close enough to each start referencing the other with new terms?
How long have you
I
wanted to
don't-
say that?
I don't know. I
don't
just thought
know.
about it when I was in
and I don't
the
think
car
so.
driving for 26 hours.
Yeah. It's very possible.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Do you think people are going to start saying, like, just calling it the 20s and 30s and 40s?
Not right away. I don't think.
Not right away. Like,
I
not,
don't think right
not
away.
the first year.
Not the first year.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Cool. We will have a college football 18 playoff before we have people referring to them as the 20s.
There you go.
I think it's going to happen, and I think they're going to try to come up with some dumb puns about it.
I sure hope so.
Well, guys, this has been a fun episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. We certainly have. You know, what we want this thing to be is just three guys sitting around talking. And so far, this has been three guys sitting around talking. I'm having too much fun with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's good. You're good at it. So
No.
you should keep doing
No.
Just keep doing.
You've got to get an announcer voice.
Episode 14 is going to be all that voice.
All the entire time, that voice.
Yeah.
Can we call
And we
13,
didn't. We never got
14?
around to. Kory had an interesting trip as well.
Yeah, we'll talk
We'll,
about
we'll
that
talk
next
about
time.
that next time. And Kory, instead of talking about it, he's going to talk about it in the third person with the announcer voice.
Yeah.
This has been From the Middle. Thank you for joining us. I have been Kory Hubble along with Kory. Well, there's not two Korys, just what Dylan Hubble and Kendall Ayla. Thanks for listening. This is Nomar Garcia Pyro steps up to the plate. Have a good evening, everybody.
I'm turning the recording off now.
Baseball.